Moving on, this is room number 60. This is limitation. And I will take these coins, thank you much. Here's the room where we came in. This is decrease, and you can see this room contains a flute and a hammer. This room is number 10, approaching, and there's just nothing useful in here. This is inner truth. There's a magic sword on the floor here, and to my knowledge, the magic sword has no function, but man, I carried that around quite a lot while I was mapping it out, because who doesn't want to have a magic sword, right? This room is number 38, opposition. And true to its name, there is some opposition in this room. There's dragons firing at us. So before we reach the inner chamber of this room, we have to complete this action sequence. And it's not terrible. It's not... I mean, this is pretty much the standard arcade-style fare you would see in a typical Atari 2600 game back in the day. So I don't begrudge them this at all. Fairly enjoyable, actually. Kind of a downwell sort of vibe from it. But the idea is we just have to get to the bottom without letting any of the dragons shoot us. And then once you solve a room, it's solved forever. Unfortunately, the inner sanctum of this room contains nothing of value. So moving on, this is room number 58, Joy, and it has some more dragons for us. We can perhaps visit them later. Moving up to the next row, this is Revolution. Revolution just had an empty bottle. This room is the Cauldron, and it's more dragons. Here we have Soft Wind, and this room has an amulet, the Amulet of the Sun. This room is Pushing Upward, and this is a Flappy Bird screen. So we have to play Flappy Bird a little bit. I kind of think it's cute how they use the design space of the action scenes in AirWorld to pay homage to like gameplay styles that either didn't exist in... Like, Flappy Bird is known to us all now, but in 1982, I don't think the game concept had even been invented at that point. Flappy Bird wasn't the first of this game concept, but you know what? They made Flappy Bird for the Atari 2600, and I'm not going to begrudge them that. It's fine. Some of the items, the manual states, can make some of these action scenes easier. I do wish there was an item that made the Flappy Bird scenes a little bit easier. As you can see, I'm pretty bad at them. But as far as I know, there isn't. I have tried every carryable item in the game, and none of them seem to have any appreciable effect on the difficulty of the Flappy Bird action sequences. Maybe there's some combination of items, like there is a saddle that we can find later, and like a jousting lance. I'm like, oh, I'll put that together with my Pegasus and make him fly faster, but no such luck. We just got to get up and over this last one. Ah, there we go. We've solved it at last. And then there's chopsticks in here, which we'll be back for later, probably. This room is DK. And DK is a Space Invaders clone. This one's really funny to me because they couldn't put Space Invaders on this collection. Space Invaders was not developed by Atari. They don't own the rights to it. But it was a big game on the Atari 2600. So this was kind of a cheeky way for them to include Space Invaders on the collection without actually including it on the collection. And I kind of wish that they'd done with that with all of the AirWorld sequences. Like, I imagine you could put in like a version of Pac-Man or something, which they also don't have the rights to. Moving on, we are... Oh, I'm getting room names wrong. I'm reading the wrong room names. We have to go back. I've ruined everything. I was reading rooms from row number 3. No. Starting at the walls, Revolution. This room is Clinging Fire, which had dragons in it. This is Family with the amulet. This is Darkness with Flappy Bird and the sticks. This is Grace and Beauty with the Space Invaders. Yeah, there we go. This room is After Completion, so I guess if they were going to add any like New Game Plus DLC, it would have to come from this room somehow. This room is Abundance. This is Fellowship. And I'm going to grab the cauldron out of this room. You can see there's also a shovel here. This room is Meeting, and Meeting has some dragons in it. This is Endurance, which is what viewers will have to demonstrate to get this far in this incredibly boring video. This is The Well. The Well has a saddle in it. This room is DK. This room has coins and a fire staff. This room is pushing upward, which we've looked into. Just some broken stuff in here for now. This room is soft wind with the another Flappy Bird forming. This room is the cauldron. Now, this room I kind of consider to be a freebie, because I'm not going to read all of these clues, but this one says, the universe can assist your rejuvenation, but you must let go of your ego. What offering do you place in your cauldron? I consider this to be a freebie. You take the cauldron to the cauldron, and you get a clue. This clue is showing us one of the interpretations of the I Ching, and you're supposed to make note of this shape, or more correctly, you're supposed to make note of which room in AirWorld this is pointing to. This room is actually pointing to room number 35, which is the room just to the north of us, which we'll see in a second. And that cauldron can sit there for the rest of the game now. So we have to do that 15 more times. Find 15 other rooms that have interpretations that involve an item going into a particular room. That one's kind of the freebie. All you got to learn to put the cauldron in the cauldron is look at the manual and match up the two room names. Over here at the wall, we have the room Pressure. Pressure just has some Garbo in it. Here we have Gathering, which has some dragons. This is room number 35, Progress. So if you look at the shape on the floor of this room, and if we go back here to the cauldron, you can see that it's the same shape. So there's something important about this room, even though, I mean, there's a Flappy Bird game in there. Oh no, I want to... No, not this room. I'm looking at my cheat sheet here. I built my own cheat sheet from the ground up. I'll show you the link down in the doobly-doo below to the Google Sheets. No, we don't need to solve this room yet. We can leave from here. This room is Contemplation. Contemplation has a water staff on the floor. This room is the Field. And Field is actually very useful. There's not anything useful on the floor in here. It's some coins. It could be any garbage item. But I found this room to be very useful because it's pretty centrally located. It's in the center of the maze, one of the 4 center rooms. And the shape of it is very, very easy to notice. Like, it's always easy to orient yourself based on the field whenever you are crossing from one part of the maze to the other. Or at least it was for me. Here is Splitting Apart. I think they should call this room Pants. There's a lance in your pants, in case you were looking for that. This room is Union. Union has some coins on the ground. Here we have Enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is a Space Invaders game. Here we have Stagnation. Stagnation. Oh, we haven't done this one yet. We've started the game. You have to fly up to AirWorld, so you just have to do the same thing in this action sequence. But yeah, I wish that they had used the design space here to... Like, all of the action sequences were classic Atari 2600 games that they weren't able to otherwise put on the collection, like Pac-Man, Space Invaders, which they got. Maybe Barnstorming. This is an ice staff. I'm sure you knew that from just looking at it. This game is Retreat, which just has some garbage on the floor. Here is Small Steps, with some more garbage on the floor. Here is Obstruction, with some more garbage on the floor. Lots of garbage. So I'm going to get the janitors out here to AirWorld. This is Stillness, and Stillness is one of these Pegasus games. It's not the name of the mini-game. What are the actual names of the mini-game? The Space Invader one is called Storm Siege. The Flappy Bird one is called Tiana's Flight. Yeah, Tiana's the winged horse. The Pegasus one I'm in now is called Atmospheric Ascent, and then the Downwell sort of one is called Draconic Descent. So we got to make it to the top and collect all the coins, while avoiding these Flappy Birds. This is the easiest of the 4, I think, little mini games. All right, and this is just a little alien guy. We're going to bring him with us. Little alien guy is coming home. This room is Humility, and this has a Pegasus. I'm going to go ahead and solve the Pegasus now that we're working on it. Might as well, right? What's on the floor in Humility? Let's find out. Let's humiliate ourselves in this mini game. Oh, that's one way to do it, Brickroad. Crash into those clouds. You get stunned when you hit a cloud, but you don't actually get a game over, which is nice. In the old Swordquest games, you would like get teleported back to the start of the room if you touched any of the things in the room. I guess this is kind of similar to Frogger in a way. There's a ladder in here, so that's neat. That's a fun ladder. We'll be back for that later. This room is gradual progress. We will gradually get through this Flappy Bird level. As far as I can tell, the Flappy Bird levels are, or Tiana's Flight, I suppose we should call them, are static. Like, the levels themselves are not procedurally generated at all. Each one is the same every time you play. So there are easier ones and harder ones. And there's some shoes and a cane and a pile of poop on the floor in here. Oh, you know what? No, we can actually do this right now. Because I'm going to grab these shoes. Because this next room is the Wanderer. And if we throw the shoes on the floor of the Wanderer, we get another casting. Over here at the wall is Attraction. No, wait. What room was Attraction? There's no game. There's just a candle on the floor. Going up here, we go to Oppression. Oppression has another Pegasus game for us. We'll probably end up solving all of the little action games, but it's not strictly required. I think there's a couple of action games guarding rooms that end up not being part of the solution. Because in my first pass, I kind of wondered if all of the important rooms were going to be guarded by action sequences, and whether knowing which room had action sequences was a clue. That turned out to not be the case. Or at least it turned out to be kind of a red herring line of inquiry. There's a compass in this room. I'm going to steal that compass. This room is nearing completion, which right now is a lie. We're nowhere near completing this game. Just some garbo on the floor. This is Dispersion. Dispersion is a Flappy Bird room that I don't think we ever have to solve. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I guess we'll find out later. This room is Organized Discipline. And because we have a little alien guy, I can now shoot 2 shots instead of 1 in the Space Invaders minigame. As far as I know, this is the only minigame that you can make easier by carrying an item around. There were a few of those in the old Swordquest games, but in fact, yeah, you'll see we missed that cloud, so now this thundercloud will take out 1/3 of our shield. But we can just ignore the thunderclouds, basically, because we're killing the enemies, the eggs, and the birds quickly enough that it's not going to matter. We have to get hit by 3 bolts of lightning before the 4th bolt kills us. There's a necklace and a kite on the floor in here. We'll take the kite. Thankfully, once you complete an action game, you don't ever have to complete it again. This room is Youthful Folly, and there's a shield on the floor. This room is Dangerous Waters, and there's a cloak on the floor. This room is Deliverance, and they've delivered us a coil of rope. Here we have Conflict. Conflict has a cursed pendant on the floor. This room is Innocence, and if you read the I Ching interpretation for Innocence, you don't need the glasses on the floor, but if you leave the kite behind, it goes ahead and solves the room for you. And you know what? While I'm in this area, we will show you guys Shock. Shock has a veil on the ground, and if you recall the clue that I read to you, the veil is what the bride uses to cover her face. We'll be back for that veil in just a moment. This room is Sprouting, and there is a lock to pick up here. There's also a Pegasus game to play quickly. So yeah, when I was solving the game on my own, I didn't play any of the action scenes at first. I was just drawing my map out. And then the next step was kind of going back and playing all the action scenes and trying out some items that I had the idea for. There's the lock on the floor. And then eventually I reached a point where there were no more action scenes and the whole rest of the game was just running around the maze. But we're going to go south from Sprouting, back into Dangerous Waters. We're going to pick up the invisibility cloak. We're going to take the invisibility cloak back to Youthful Folly, drop it off here for our next clue. And again, if you read the interpretation for Youthful Folly, it's pretty obvious you want to take the cloak here. Okay, so north of Youthful Folly is a new room. This is Nourishment. This is a Flappy Bird room. We'll just take care of this real quick. This will be a pretty important one later. You can kind of get into a good groove of 5 flaps to get up and over each obstacle is nice. All right, we're going to... no, I'm just going to clear this for now. We're not doing anything else here right now. Right. This room is returning. Now, one of the items is a boomerang, and it's kind of just a red herring. Like, obviously, I tried the boomerang in the room returning. On the floor here is an earth staff, but it's not actually a clue. It didn't lead to anything. So there are some red herring items or some clues that can be interpreted in several different ways. So there's trial and error required in the sense of you have to play on your intuition, but you can make educated guesses, whereas in Earthworld and Fireworld, you're just doing random things and hoping they work. This room is increase. There is a broken sword on the floor here. This room is biting through. Just some rubble. This room is following, and in following, we're going to drop off our compass. Get another clue. Head up into the last row. This room is breakthrough, and there's a feather saddle here. Yes, I first thought it was a leather saddle. It's not. If you look at they're alphabetized. It's under F for feather saddle, not to be confused with the iron saddle. Both of which I tried in every mini game, both individually and as a combination, trying to get something to work. This room is affluence. Affluence, there's a blanket on the floor, and if you throw 2 piles of coins on the floor in affluence, we do get another clue. This room is peace. And, oh, I have to complete peace. No, this room is small influences. I was like, man, there shouldn't be a Pegasus action sequence in peace. There's nothing peaceful about rows of hostile eggs trying to knock you off your flying horse. That's my favorite sentence that I've ever said in my life now. I keep a collection of them. I'm going to publish them one day. All of my favorite sentences. Aha! A bucket. Who doesn't love a bucket? So yeah, that's small influences. This room is peace, and peace has a chicken leg on the floor. Not hungry at the moment. We went to Cracker Barrel for dinner. Had a big old cheeseburger. Here is power containment. The power contained in this room is a pile of coins, apparently. This room is patience, which again, my viewers will need in spades to get through this video. There's an air staff inside of patience. This room is great power. The great power contained therein happens to be coins again. It could just as easily be any trash item. This is a hairpin. I tried the hairpin in a lot of rooms too. I felt like I correlated that with several of the clues. And then here we are in the very top in room number 1 of the I Ching, creative power, which just has a garbage item in it. Now, we're at the point where we've gotten some clues, but at this point in the game, I have the map written out. I know the name and number and symbol for each room, and I know what items are there in its initial state. After you start moving items around, God help you, because if you lose an item, you're like, hey, where did I leave that bucket? I don't remember where I put that down. What I ended up doing, like the 5th or 6th time after I needed an item and had no idea where I had put it, is I brought all of the items up to the corner and just dropped them all in creative power and great power next door. Like, all the items in the game can fit in these 2 rooms, so I had like an inventory stash, because you can only carry 5 items at a time. But okay, we have this bucket. Let's go ahead and start solving the rest of this game. If we go down here, we have the inventory space now to grab the veil. So we'll do that. I will take the lock. And then we can go over here. Grab this coil of rope. So our inventory's full now. I think this would be an actually interesting speedrunning exercise, like trying to figure out the most efficient way to get through the game, which items go to which rooms, etc. I'm not going to be trying to set any records or anything today. I'm just going to try to get the solution done before we all turn into old men. But if we drop off the veil here, we get the clue for marrying maiden. Let's see. Nearby is the cauldron, which we've already done. We need to drop off... Shoutouts to Fruitless Endeavor for sponsoring this video. If you liked the video and you want to see more, please tickle my thumb, leave a friendly comment, and ring my little bell.